Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. So tonight, as described on YouTube, we have a special night of talks from the resident community here at MT Cloud. So you'll be hearing from not just Bante Sadaso, who's currently sitting in front of us, but also Ayasoma, Bante Pamuto, myself, as well as Antoinette, our lay resident. So today is Pravarna Day, the end of the traditional rains retreat, which we've been observing here at the monastery. And to celebrate the end, we thought we would share some words of Dhamma with all of you. So good to see Ned, Melinda, Robin, and Adriana so far. Adriana says, hope you're all doing well and avoiding all temptations this Uposatha. So thank you, Adriana, for that. And also hi to friends who are watching, but not typing anything so far. All right, so we can get started. I'll pass things over to Bante Sadaso.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Good evening, friends. So, as mentioned, we decided that we would follow an old custom that's commonly done in the Ajahn Chah tradition, that on the Pravarna Day, the last day of the Vasa, the 3-month summer retreat, every member of the monastic community gives a short talk. And we normally talk about something that's alive for us in our practice. So it might be something related to our time here at the monastery, something that we've been focusing on during the Vasa time, something that we've been thinking about a lot lately, something that we've been practicing with, or something along those lines. And the way we're going to be doing this is by pressure from the community. I'm going first. But then after that, I have a bunch of names in this bell here, and I'm going to pluck them out, and we'll do things that way and see who goes in which order. So my first thoughts. So first off, this is our first Vasa at our new monastery. So personally, I really love this place. I love this monastery. It's a really lovely building and a lovely neighborhood. So I've really been delighting in having a good facility, a good monastery, a good place to live. Appreciating that this is not a guarantee. It's not something that we can expect, but it's something that we build up through our own good karma. It's something that we build up through doing good things. And when we've done enough good things, then it comes back to us. So reflecting that this building looks like it's built out of stones and wood, but actually it's built up out of our own good karma. So those of us who live here, those of us who come here for Dharma, for meditation, those who come to partake, we all have this experience because we've built it through our own wholesome choices. So reflecting on that, this monastery building is built of our own karma. It's built of our own good karma. And the community here. So we have 6 people living here, 5 human and 1 cat. And we all get along pretty well. For the most part, we're quite harmonious. We care about each other. We look after each other. We respect each other. We support each other. And that also is something which is not a guarantee. There's no certainty that people are going to get along. There's no certainty that people are going to be kind to each other. There's no guarantee of this at all. So again, this harmonious relationship that we have here between the 6 of us is something that we've built. It's built of our own good karma. It's both the result of what we've done in the past, but it's also something that we continuously build in each moment. So one of the lovely phrases we see from the suttas, when the Buddha is talking about a harmonious community, he says, living in harmony, rejoicing together, without arguments, blending like milk and water, looking upon each other with affectionate eyes. So it's this lovely description of how we can build a harmonious environment, a safe environment, a peaceful environment, which we can live in, knowing that we're supporting each other on the path to awakening. So I've really been appreciating this feeling of harmony in the resident community here. Some other notable things about this Vasa time is that it's been a time of significant changes. So first off, it's during the pandemic. So this is the first Vasa I've experienced during a pandemic. So that's been an interesting experience with adaptability. So one of the things that became really apparent to me is that one of the most important qualities that we need to develop in our practice and in our life in general is adaptability. The ability to swiftly change and adjust to the shifting circumstances in our lives. So when the pandemic started, one thing I noticed was how difficult it was for so many people to adjust. In a short period of time, a matter of just 2 or 3 weeks, in a short period of time, our life changed dramatically. And many people had a really hard time adjusting to this, a really hard time dealing with it, the sudden changes in their life. But I noticed that Buddhist monastics, for the most part, were just like, okay, things are different. No problem. Let's make the most of it. Let's do the best we can with this. It's not a problem. There's nothing wrong here. It's just a different way of being, a different way of working with our mind. So really appreciating that quality of adaptability as being a necessary component of our practice. Because it's not just adaptability to changing external conditions of the world and so on, but it's also adaptability to the changing conditions within our own mind. What's going on with our mind right now? What thoughts and emotions are coming and going? How can we shift and adjust to this moment, this experience of mind? So I also noticed this because I spent the last 9 days on personal retreat. So during personal retreat, not having any schedule, just me in my room. And I gave myself a few activities that I was permitted to do: sitting meditation, walking meditation, sutta reading, chanting. And in each moment, I was just looking to see what would be the most useful right now. What would be the most applicable? What feels like the right thing to be doing with this mind? And sometimes I would tell myself like, oh, I should do sitting meditation. But I'd look at my mind and I'd be like, actually, no, that's not the right thing. Right now I should do walking meditation. That's the right thing. Or sometimes I'd be like, I want to keep reading these suttas. I'm enjoying the sutta reading. I want to keep reading. But then I'd be like, no, actually the mind is becoming quiet and peaceful. I should take advantage of this and do some sitting meditation. Or sometimes feeling a bit restless, and it's like, well, maybe I'll do some chanting, and that will divert the restlessness. So it's also that quality of adaptability, of trying to adapt to the shifting needs and conditions of your internal world, as well as the external world. Because as our practice develops, we start to recognize that these are not separate. These are not different things. And the more we cultivate an internal adaptability, the more easily we can adapt to external changes as well, and vice versa. So cultivating that adaptability mind. A couple other major things that have changed. One is that my beloved friend, Aya Soma, received full ordination. So I'm very happy for her about that. So it's not easy in this world for female in the Theravada tradition to get full ordination. It can be quite a challenge. So I'm very happy that she's had this opportunity that's come to her. Also, my old friend Bhante Pramuto, who's been through his own difficulties, struggling with chronic health conditions and so on, managed to get his health back under some semblance of control and decided to re-enter the monastic life. That was also a shift that's happened during this vasa, is that my old friend Pramuto reappeared and said he wanted to be a monk again and asked if I could help with that. And we pulled some strings and made some things happen, and now he's a monk again. So it's also been a lovely shift happening. And also all in this vasa, which apparently has been a pretty busy vasa now that I think about it. Also our friend who used to have a different name, our friend Sumino, entered the monastic order. So this also was a delightful shift that we've had here. And our friend Antoinette, who's always been a wonderful participant, expressed her interest in coming and spending a few months at the monastery. So there's this sense of the community coming together, the sense of this gelling together of a supportive community. And again, this is built of our own karma. It's built of the choices that we make. So putting out there the causes for a harmonious community to come together. And then that comes back to us. And here we are. So the end of the Vasa, Pavarna Day, is also traditionally a day when the members of the monastic community invite each other to offer admonishment, constructive criticism, to give each other advice, to look at each other's conduct and ask ourselves, what can I say that would be of benefit? What can I say that would help this person see their own blind spots more clearly, help them make progress in their practice? And that's also a time to reflect on ourselves, to reflect on what have we been doing with our practice? What's been working well? Maybe we should develop more. What's been not working so well that we need to change or adjust? So being honest with ourselves, reflecting deeply on our own mind, and really asking ourselves, what in my practice needs improvement? What needs shifting? What have I been persisting in doing even though it's not working? And also considering, where are my strengths? And how can I better leverage those strengths in my practice to get even more significant results from it? So these are a few thoughts that I have related to this time of ending the Vasa and shifting gears. Now that the Vasa is over, we'll be doing other things. So we'll see where it goes from here. But the next place it goes from here is to one of my 4 companions giving a talk. Who will it be? Let's see what the forces of fate are bringing up. Ayasoma will be our second contestant on tonight's event. I see some silent applause from the people in the room. Probably happiness that it's not them up next. So we'll go ahead and let Ayasoma take a seat and see what she has to say. Thank you. And Stanley was ringing the bell for us, which was cute.
All right. Thank you, Bhante, and thank you, friends, for joining us this evening. What to say? So the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of gratitude. A lot of gratitude to just have the opportunity in this lifetime to practice the Dhamma. There's a lot of memories of when this path was not even an option for me in the way that I didn't even know it existed. and I didn't have the teachings available to provide me with guidance in how to go about my life, how to deal with both existential suffering and just common everyday suffering. And it's such a blessing to instead be in the space and time where I'm able to practice, to have this path available, to have found it, to have had the good karmic conditions, to have found the Dhamma, and also to be able to practice it in the shape and form that the Buddha designed out of compassion for us 2,500 years ago. So it's my first part of the Vasa as a fully ordained monastic, and it's thanks to Bhante Sudaso, my dear friend, and now also my preceptor, who has created the conditions for this to happen, and also my fellow spiritual companions here who have supported me along the way and have all contributed in one shape or form for both the actual ordination to happen, but also just evolution within the path. And grateful to share this space also with lay friends who also point us in the right direction, pointing to our blind spots perhaps, and we're all here committed to the same goal, which is such a beautiful, special thing, special place to be. And so no matter the difficulties that come and arise inevitably just by having a human body and interacting with other human bodies or non-human bodies, we're all unenlightened beings, all of us somewhat trying to do our best. Sometimes it can be not that easy to interact with one another. Not because we don't care about one another, but just simply because our defilements don't care about one another necessarily. They're just doing what defilements do, unenlightened things. But yet there is that genuine commitment of all of us who are sharing the space to work towards awakening. And it's such a beautiful gift to be in a place where such commitment is in the air, and how we can tangibly see how all of our actions through body, speech, and mind impact others, and how others through body, speech, and mind impact ourselves. And we can see how, even though, a word like monastic actually comes from monos, so, the Greek word for one, alone, solitary. And a lot of times we can give so many implications to this as being really, really alone. And in one hand, in one way, it is true. We are, we're definitely alone with our defilements. We're the ones who have to do the work eventually. But at the same time, we see how this, how we're kind of like a component of a river. They say in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, flowing like a river. And it is so true. At the very beginning, I was actually a little bit averse. I remember when I first heard that we should all like just flow like a river. And I was like, I don't know if I'm not part of a river. I'm one single person, and I have to deal with my own thing. But actually, when we live in community, it becomes a really humbling experience where we at a certain point, we have to deal with the fact that whether or not we like to be part of this river, we are part of the river. And whether or not we like it, our behaviors affect others. And whether we like it or not, others' behaviors affect us in our spiritual practice. And that can be either a burden or it can be a beautiful gift. A beautiful gift in the path where we can actually think in every moment, before, during, and after every action that we do, is this going to be beneficial for myself and others? And then it's not a burden anymore to live with others, but rather becomes an incredible gift. It becomes a gift because we can see ourselves mirrored in the ones outside of ourselves. And we can see the direct impact of our practice, the direct impact of our actions, and we can correct what needs to be corrected, and we can keep on developing what needs to be developed and nourish what has already been cultivated. And that's when gratitude arises, gratitude to have the opportunity to practice here with so many people committed in the path, committed to this goal, committed to learning the Dhamma and practicing Dhamma. And it's such a beautiful gift, priceless gift. And it's so much happiness naturally arises just at this thought. And also the extended community, perhaps also the people that are not here with us this evening within these walls, but the people who are supporting us and just feeding us every day. We wouldn't be alive if it weren't for the food that is continuously offered to us, or the requisites that are continuously offered to us. It was so beautiful during the ordination to see so many people spontaneously appearing without us having invited anyone, not because we didn't want them there, but because of the pandemic and all the different security provisions that we decided to follow and keep it a little bit quiet. But people naturally, the word spread around, so people naturally showed up. And all of a sudden, I still remember, I turned around and I saw all these familiar faces. And it really filled my heart with a lot of joy. And it's the same pretty much every day, whenever, lots of gratitude, waking up. There's hardly any kind of request that one needs to make. Everything somewhat naturally shows up. And it wasn't always this way. It was quite different at the very beginning. But that's the magic of the Dhamma, magic of the practice, magic of really giving us first and foremost. And that giving becomes contagious. I realized that that's a natural way that just by doing a simple action, we tend to focus on the action in and of itself and the sort of immediate result. But it actually has so many different implications, so many large implications, where then that action starts spreading out in the world. So when we start practicing generosity ourselves, then naturally we become linked in this sort of karmic realm of kindness and of generosity, where people are looking after us and we're looking after themselves. So much gratitude for not even having to think too much about how to go about every day, and how there is a natural safety environment, that safe aura that is not created by one single person or not even one single building, but rather a network of all different beings that are committed to practicing a path of wholesomeness, of goodness, of generosity, of kindness, creating that incredible foundation that is what really is indispensable to propel us to do the work, to really uproot greed, hatred, and delusion, and attain blissful nibbana. So I can say finally that it has matured in me the understanding of why we practice for ourselves and others, and how it's undistinguishable, and it's not just a kind of cute little sort of quote or phrase that we find perhaps on the tea bag. They like to put cute little Zen quotes like, oh, we practice for ourselves and others, and we're like, oh yeah, cute, okay, whatever. But actually it is true. We practice for ourselves and others, and it is tangible, it's incredible, it's beautiful, it's transformative. And we can see how every time we act in an enlightened way, we're spreading enlightenment around us. And so we see how a fully enlightened being brings so much benefits to this world just by, if we only observe one slightly enlightened action we do, how many incredible impacts it has. It's inconceivable to think someone who's fully enlightened, how much benefit and incredible goodness they bring to this world. And obviously in supreme form, a Sammasambuddha. So as I started being grateful for the triple gem, I'll end with my gratitude towards the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Gratitude, grateful to have this incredible affinity with Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings. Incredibly grateful to have found the teachings of the Pali Canon that really made an impact in my mind, and also the teachings from the Mahayana tradition and the teachings from the Tibetan tradition, all that have enriched the soil that created the basis for my interest in practice. So yeah, thank you. And I'll end with this, and I'll pick the name. Who will be next?
No cheating.
You're saying no cheating. Bante Sumano. I didn't cheat. It's here. All right.
I was feeling really comfortable behind the laptop as MC. Yeah, so I had an idea of what I was going to say, and I knew that it was going to evaporate the minute I sat down, and that's exactly what happened. But it's great because now I don't have to try and remember. I can just let it go. I was reflecting the past few days, actually, how really great it's actually been being in this community. We had a friend who was staying with us just a couple days, a couple weeks ago. And we were just talking actually about how rare it is actually to have an opportunity like this. So in terms of Buddhist practice, we say it's rare to be born a human being. Um, so we've all sort of achieved that level of something really amazing, actually. But then even rarer to encounter the Dhamma, rarer still to understand it, even rarer to practice it, and then rare to have the opportunity to go forth as a monastic. And then even from there, rare to find a community that's supportive, where you can get good teachings, where you can be supported in your practice. And I was reflecting on this because when I was a layperson, it was actually very stressful to constantly sort of be searching for the right conditions or the right things that I thought would really make me happy. So whether it was traveling to the right place at the right time with the right people, listening to the right music, reading the right books, doing all the right things, but sort of like this constant and endless search for safety, for security, for happiness, that each time I sort of achieved or got what I wanted, there was something that just wasn't quite fitting. Something that was pleasant, but it wasn't quite what I'd built it up to be in my mind. So when I joined this community, I actually shared with Ayasama and Bhante Siddhasa that I had low expectations. I could have phrased it better, probably. But what I meant was that I was intentionally approaching the situation without expectation, or at least as little expectation as I could muster. Not because I thought it was going to turn out horribly, but rather because I wanted to experience what life here was going to be like on its own terms. I wanted to sort of stop, in some ways, this reaching out and trying to grab onto something because I think it's going to make me happy, but rather just observing what being in a situation is like and what it's like for the mind to not constantly be looking for how this can benefit me, for how this can satisfy me or make me happy, but rather how I can sort of turn that around on itself. So I joined the community at the beginning of August, so I've only been a monastic for the last month of the Rains Retreat. But a lot of times I've really just been watching my mind and watching how, especially as a greed type, contentment is difficult for me. And it's not because my current situation most of the time is unpleasant or unfavorable, but rather that there's always this nagging voice in my mind that says, this could be better. How can this be better? I know what will make it better. And that thing isn't here. And so using that time to the time, at least since I've ordained, to really just look at the mind that thinks that. So rather than just jumping to be like, you're right, mind. I need vegan ice cream. I need to travel to Tokyo. I need this and that. But rather be like, okay, I feel like I need this, but where's that coming from? Really investigating, being honest with myself, why is there this feeling of lack in the mind, this feeling that I'm not satisfied by my current conditions? And it's been difficult, I have to say. But I was talking with Bante Pamuto the other day, and it's actually amazing how when you intentionally put yourself in a situation where your usual sort of escape routes and habits are curbed, um, for example, not eating after noon or not watching TV shows, listening to music because of the precepts, you start to realize that there is this like itch, there's this urge to do all of these things. And when you can't do them, or at least when you choose not to do them, then you have to look at the itch. Or you can drive yourself crazy, but I chose to look at the itch. And then when you look at the itch, at least in my case, I started to see how it was almost like I was scratching myself and then wondering, oh, where's that itch coming from? I need to do something about it. So I could be perfectly calm and sitting in meditation in the morning. And then, but I wish it would end in 5 minutes. Why is Ayasoma not ringing the bell? She's not using the meditation vibrating clock thingy. Clearly, we've been sitting here for almost 2 hours. But then I can laugh at it and be like, oh yeah, that's just me saying that this is not great, that this needs to change. And then seeing and really asking myself, actually, but isn't that bad? Like, let's look at the situation. And most of the time, because I didn't just get up and walk out of the room, I had to sort of sit with my experience, or at least I encouraged myself. It's like this weird conversation happening in the mind between yourself and yourself. I had to like just be like, you know what is it about the situation that you think is unbearable, that you think you can't handle, that you think you need to run away from? And a lot of the times, the answer was nothing. So I was able to sit. It was a battle sometimes, but other times it was actually quite easy. And it seemed like a real, very personal struggle, like something that, only had implications for my practice and just what I wanted to accomplish. But then I started to think about, how both I and people I know are feeling right now, especially in the world with everything that's going on. Things aren't perfect. And the first step is being honest with ourselves that that's the case. Just like when I was reflecting on what I was feeling, being here, really surrounded by wonderful people in a wonderful place, like my fellow monastics have shared, but still feeling like something was off. And then being honest, like, my mind is actually feeling that there's sadness or there's agitation. And then looking at it. And then the implications that that had for sort of our life in the world, where things aren't quite what we would like them to be. And then actually looking at it and being honest with ourselves about what that means. So I had shared in a talk that I'd given over the weekend that just going for the exit, the escape route, whether it's through traveling around the world, just distracting ourselves with Netflix, continuing to shop and buy and do all these things, even though the world is crumbling around us. Well, those escape routes just lead right back into the burning house. But when we can be honest with ourselves and really sit with the discomfort and be like, why is this so scary? Why is this happening, honestly? then the answer comes up. But the answer won't be clear unless we've actually decided intentionally that we're not going to go for ignorance and delusion and indulgence as band-aids, but rather we're going to look at the sore that's really festering on our minds. And then when we do that, the answer becomes slightly clearer what it is we have to do. Usually when we have an injury, we're like, okay, well, I either need to treat this myself with the first aid kit, or I need to go to the doctor because I'm not qualified, or I need to go to the emergency room right now because I'm about to bleed out. And if we can respond to sort of what's happening in our mind in the same way, then I think things get a little less scary. It'll still hurt the same way that, an injury hurts. But we can do something about it. And I know, like, for myself, at least with everything that's going on, it feels like there's very little that I can do that will have an effect in the world. But I realized, just like I had realized with just the practice of living in community every day and sitting in meditation every day, even if I just didn't really feel like it, to be honest, is that you just start where you are. And for me, it started with not running anymore. And somewhat paradoxically, that already was freedom. That already was happiness. Knowing that I didn't have to travel to Tokyo, I didn't have to get the vegan ice cream, I didn't have to do all these things. I could actually just sit right here and be perfectly content. And then with that contentment, it's so much easier to get things done, to really work towards the things that I'm aspiring to. And so for, those of us who aren't monastics necessarily, well, both monastics and non-monastics, it's really an opportunity right now in the world to look at, how we can sort of find that contentment, but then also use that as a source or a wellspring for action. And then I think in that way, at least my experience has been that things get a little less scary. Things get a little brighter. I mean, things might still crumble and fall apart, and they will anyway, just the natural order of things. But at least we know that throughout that, we've cultivated kindness, compassion, virtue, generosity, contentment. And like we sort of shared at the lunch table today, if we die, and we will die, so it's not a hypothetical, but when we do die, in whatever form that is, then we die with a happy mind, a wholesome mind. A mind that wasn't afflicted. And somehow by being here and taking on 10 precepts and maybe hundreds more in the future, helps you really realize that everything you need actually is right here. And you can access it at any moment if you just stop and look at it. So I think that's all I have to share on the topic. Thanks for your attention. Moment of truth. There's only 2 candidates left. Stan was not included in the draw. And it's Pamuto. Bante Pamuto. Am I centered here?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Great. So, Sumino was right. There is something somewhat different about these talks. And I've sat down for many talks, and often I've had only the vaguest sense of what the topic was. And it's just nothing. It's like, okay, I'm going to talk on the Dhamma, but there's something very vulnerable about these Pavarana talks, because you're going to be talking about you. You're going to be talking about your experience of the Dhamma. There's something very, very humbling about that. So as much as you might think, oh, I'm going to talk about this and this and this and this, and you have such good ideas, the second you sit down and you're like, oh, I've got to try to speak on what's going on in my heart and mind, and that's something quite different. And it's amazing how, no matter how many years you've been in front of audiences or cameras or just people who want to hear Dhamma, you can just talk and talk and talk, and yet still have that experience of revealing, what's going on in your mind right now. And that's what these Pavarana talks do. And there's something really special about that, in that it's Dhamma. It has to be Dhamma, because you're going to be exposed. And even if you say things that aren't the intelligent, well-analyzed Dhamma that you might have put forth if you were well prepared, that will be your Dhamma. You will display a mind as it's working. And what's been going on in my mind, especially through the three wonderful talks already shared, is the sense of growth, and remembering back to Ante Siraso in his early years, and what a delightfully prickly person he was, and how not everybody really jived with that, but there was something I thought was really sweet. There was some unabashedness to it. It was how he was. It was his Dhamma, and he wasn't really aware of why other people couldn't see that, why they wanted to change it or take issue with it. And I often took issue with it, and to the point that I realized it was futile, and I would give up, and I'd say, well, that's just Siraso. And it became a wonderful actually amulet of protection against the prickliness. As the moment I realized, oh, he's a dosa type, that's just Siraso. And it was really, and immediately it wouldn't bother me anymore. It would be, that's who he is. That's his Dhamma. And I could just keep seeing it as it was. And to now see Bhante, and to hear his talk, hear the metta overflowing, and to just reflect on how much he's grown over the years. And he went from, I'm prickly, deal with it, to maybe I can be a little less prickly. How wonderful. And of course, this very momentous vasa to see Ayasoma now fully realized bhikkhuni, and that's really incredible. I was there pretty early on at Buddhist Insights at the Rockaway Center. I remember where Aya started from, just kind of, approaching Buddhism and saying, this seems like a good idea, and bringing everything she had to it. And that was her Dhamma, and that now the path is working. And, it's really incredible how much growth there's been. And I was telling friends that I could really see. I spent a year away from the monasteries and away from teachers, and Aya spent that year in monasteries and with teachers, and what a difference in the amount of growth. And she had grown so much, and I felt like I had, kind of had the pause button on. And it wasn't until I really got back into this environment that I could feel like I was moving forward again instead of treading water. And Bhante Sumino, to say, I delight every time he brings up a metaphor that sounds like a subha, because I like the asubha contemplations, and it's nice to have somebody who's just like talking about, cutting his hand, or, guts are being taken to the hospital, and it's like, yes, yeah, right on it. And taking on 10 precepts, and what a remarkable thing. He's in the process of selling his house. And these 10 precepts are giving him this container to do it without clinging and aversion. Actually, he just wants it done. It just seems like a burden because he doesn't need the money. He's found a source of happiness that's independent of making a ton of money on the house. And what an incredible state it is to arise in that. And Antoinette, our lay resident, who showed up, and we're kind of like, yeah, might be here for a month, might be here for 6, might make it through the week, and getting comfortable. And it's really, it's a joy to think about growth and how it's, this is the noble lineage that started with the Buddha and has continued on. The other day, a good friend of the monastery was here, and he asked me to take the 8 precepts. I was kind of surprised. It's like, it's a very normal thing in a Buddhist monastery, but it's usually formalized, and people usually do it, regularly. It happens on this day or that day. And it's something very rare and special when somebody approaches you and just asks for them, because you realize that they're trying to internalize these. And it's also very humbling to realize they come to you because they realize you have internalized these, and they want the support of a foundation that's steady to help them get up on their shaky legs and make their own foundation steady. And that's really what we're doing here. In the past year, I've been moving a little bit and meeting different monastics and trying to figure out how I was going to get back into monastic robes, because this was something very dear to me. And I think mostly because of that sense of inspiring growth and of setting a steady foundation. Even while I was in lay life, I felt there was something different about me, something that had been made very strong and unshakable, and I wanted more of that sense of confidence in the Buddhist teaching. Reading a sutta this morning where the Buddha encourages us to experience the liberations in our body, to develop confidence in them. And this is the very first liberations that we get come through sila. And so to be here in a monastery is taking on precepts, and we get to see how that affects the world around us. And people are always passing through our property, and they don't seem to be surprised at all, like we are, that they're passing through. They just wander in and out, and they feel quite comfortable with their children, with their dogs, and they come up to the Buddha statue we've installed, and to understand that they feel safe because of sila. They feel safe because of the byproduct of what we're doing here. Just because we live our lives in an orderly and meditative way, the grounds are orderly and meditative. They're peaceful and free from dangers. Nobody feels judged or shunned. And so people flow in and out, and squirrels and foxes
it feels like a safe place, and that's just from practicing the precepts and having grown in them and having made them a steady base. And that we're always sharing this. So if there's any encouragement I can make to the community on this Bhavarana night, it's to find that sense of confidence and those liberations that we've experienced in ourselves, whether it be metta, growth in samana dhammas, or even a subhasanya, and sila, to find in ourselves a continuity of practice. I've been to I've also seen monastics in this time of COVID, and some monastic communities, when they were separated from their lay community, everybody just kind of saw it as a free retreat, and they kind of started doing what they wanted to be doing. And many, that was just to go off to their cabin, to have an open schedule, to practice when they wanted, how they wanted. And I found it very refreshing to come here to Empty Cloud, where there's a sense of communal practice and a continuity of practice, that there are things that we do when we feel good, and there are things that we do when we feel bad, and that they can be the same things sometimes. And that gives us a sense of we're not just trying to find the right conditions or the right monastery. We're trying to find stability within ourselves, a continuity within ourselves that we can really use as a touchstone wherever we are and whatever we're going through. And for many, they are just looking in on that state and wanting to have it. What would it be like, if I kept the 5 precepts? What would it be like if I kept the 8 precepts? What would it be like to not use money? What would it be like to be an integral part of a community where one says, why shouldn't I do what the others want to do and abandon what I want to do? What would it be like to give up all the little go-tos that are so comfortable, and to just be part of a structure and a schedule that's based on the precepts, that's based on meditation, it's based on learning, to see that sometimes those things that we touch and we bring into the world are just those things that we keep doing. So in Bhante's example of the things he gave himself to do on retreat, these are never things that we're done with. Like, learning the monastic discipline, even after 10 years, I don't feel I've learned the monastic discipline. It's like I could just cycle through the 5 books of the monastic discipline, and by the time I got to the end, I would want to start again at the beginning and keep going, because this is not something that you simply attain and then you've got it and you can forget about it. But it's something we want to make continuous, like that appreciation of the precepts, that appreciation of meditation, that appreciation of metta and growth and being part of a community. When we're always looking for that, when we're always inclining towards that, then it's always going to be a part of our life, whether the conditions for it are easy, like it was before COVID, we didn't even think about it, or whether the conditions take a lot of intentionality, and we have to be willing to take risks or do things in new ways, like to broadcast everything on the internet, to have that same connection and that same impact on the world. So these are a few thoughts, and I don't even know how long it's been, but I do know who's next.
Okay.
here. This is the first time I'm sitting in front of the camera. It's really weird, just staring at this thing. I'll try to not stare at you all, but hello. Well, I have to say that before sitting here, and before actually even knowing what all of this was about, I had this concern about, like, most of the time I don't even know all of the words to the chants, and like, I don't know how to pronounce anything. So I don't know what I could offer, except the invitation was to just share what my experience is. And so a proverb came up for me that it says, a bird doesn't sing because it has an answer, it sings because it has a song. And so I am the one that is the most close to being in the world. And so I know that from some of the people that I've shared with, some of them say, wow, that's so courageous that you're in a monastery. And so there's this shock value of, why are you in a monastery? Well, one is, look at the world. I mean, all of you are so courageous that you're still out there in the world in 2020. And so that's why I'm in a monastery. And I recently posted just being here, and the first night crying during my meditation, just because this sense of safety was present for me. And it's almost like a food that someone may not have ever had before, and so you can't really explain to them what it tastes like. And so there's this experience in safety that I swear is unrecognizable and unknowable unless you're in a space like this. And so I am grateful that I had the opportunity to experience that. And in this space of safety, I've also been paying attention to, like, once survival is not the preoccupation of the mind, then what can your mind do with that energy? And so since I've been here too, like, I've been looking at that contemplation and all of the things that have been happening in the monastery. So one of the things that happened when I initially came here was that 2 of the chickens were killed by the fox. And so the 3rd chicken just was in this place of angst and was hiding all of the time in this heavily thorned area. And I was just like, wow, I know what that chicken feels like when you don't have protection. And so you're always placing yourself in an environment where you could be protected, and all of your energy goes to survival. And what it feels like to be prey, what it feels like to be predator, or to always have the predator come. And so, like, creating conditions where you don't have to use all of your energy for survival. And that's what the 3rd chicken was missing, that the conditions for them to flourish and to live in peace were no longer there. And so being at the monastery for me is about creating the conditions where all of my energy is not in survival mode. All of my energy is not in even, like, how to look good. Like, I knew that one of the precepts was not about adornment. And so I purposefully left all of my makeup. And I'm not a makeup person, but, for some reason I really wanted makeup. And so someone, invited me to a Zoom call and said, I'm going to record. You could feel free to wear makeup or do your face up anyway. I'm just like, I don't have any. And I also pick at my face a lot. And so, like, I've been picking, not for adornment. Underneath this head wrap is a hot mess. No, or dormant. But, when none of your energy is going towards those things, then where else can your energy go? And so for me, I've been using that in my meditative practice. I don't have all of these concerns. Okay, Antoinette, bring your energy back. And then I want to take on using my meditation to create something in my life. No. Stop the craving. Bring your energy back. And so I then said, okay, I'm going to have my meditation just be about quieting the mind, not creating these other things, just getting that I have the conditions where I could go in and emptying the mind. And I really got how much the mind is a minefield. Yeah. In the best of conditions, I still have a minefield going on. In the best of conditions, like I go around at night checking all of the doors to make sure that they're locked. And I really got that even when conditions around me are great, I then have to learn about the conditions that have been planted in me, that I've been giving energy to. And I no longer get to excuse it by saying it's the world. And I really get to deal with what I'm carrying and what doesn't serve me. And I get to practice renunciation in this way that I hadn't anticipated when I initially came. And so for others, renunciation and being in a monastery comes across as suffering. Oh, you can't watch TV. I didn't watch TV anyways. Have you seen TV? No animal products. I'm already vegan. So all of these things that reducing communication. I don't like picking up my phone anyway. So all of these things are great. It just sounded like heaven to me. So renunciation really was not that big of a deal until I had to deal with what there was for me to renounce, and also what there was for me to renounce as something that I'm choosing. Because I got in sharing with others that I was in this monastery, I can no longer talk to you as much as I used to. Or it sounded like the monastics were doing something to me. And then I was creating this concern for others. And so I said, okay, I'm not speaking powerfully about my time here at the monastery. And I had to sit with myself in my own meditation and figure that out. And so it's not about renunciation. It's not about the precepts. It's really about refining and refinement and the refinement of my practice. And am I worth it? Do I deserve it? And all of the years I've had on earth, like I've given energy over here, over here, over here. And I know in my quiet moments, I've said, if I could just have a moment, if I could just like not have to do this, if I could just like exhale. And so I got that being here was really the answer to the thing that I had been asking for all along, even if I don't voice it. And that's how I went back to people to share. The monastics are not doing anything to me. You don't have to be afraid. Like, I'm not being punished. They haven't taken my phone away. I put it away. Why would you do something like that, Antoinette? Why? Because it gives me the opportunity to be with me and to go inside and to do my inner work and to clear out those cobwebs or to just stare at them, because some of them do not want to go. So, to be with all of the cobwebs, to be with the things that I like about myself and not like about myself, and really to just examine it. And this world and the media and all of the things that are happening, there's so much distraction out in the world. And we're here for a time, and we're here for a purpose. And you could give so much energy out there, but really, like, the final frontier is really the inner work that there is to do. And when you do that work, then you can be with all of the things that are happening in the world. So from my meditative practice, I've been able to be with the pandemic. I've been able to be with the racial tensions happening in the world. I've been able to be with it all with empathy, with gratitude for being able to maintain balance, and also with compassion for those that may not be able to maintain balance. And so, like, I've been doing a lot of spiritual work for some time, and sometimes people become so spiritual that they're no earthly good. Like, don't judge people because they may not have the same tools that you have. So what are you going to do with those tools? And so that's why I'm here, because that deep inner work, I get to share it with others who look at this coming here as crazy. If I speak to them, then they won't think it's crazy. And so they may be able to listen to me in a certain way, and I can then share the teachings that I've been getting. And it's just been a joy. I also have to say that the thing that I thought was the hardest coming in would have been not eating dinner. And so for July and August, I actually stuffed myself for 2 months. I ate and ate until it was uncomfortable eating. And it's not that bad. Like, not having dinner, again, is not renunciation. It's refinement. Like, all of the energy that one puts towards the meals that they're going to prepare, like, really be attentive to the time that you have and the time that you give to things. And then powerfully choose, what will you give time to? And I give time to just all of me and this inner journey and my elevation and how I can contribute to helping others to get free from their suffering. So I am so thankful for everyone here, for the beautiful space that you create. And thank you for letting me speak.
Okay. And now there's emptiness featured. But we have, we have a bit of emptiness actually happening with the camera. Interesting. We have 2 fans of Antoinette's.
It's my energy. I changed the whole thing with the camera. Look at that.
Did we lose the camera feed?
No, there's camera, but it's blurry, which is very fascinating.
Oh, maybe. Let's see.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Are we back?
All right. And so, as we started with Bhante Sudhaso, we're going to conclude with some words from Bhante Sudhaso.
Great. Did you say there were questions there?
No, there are not questions, but there's lots of appreciation for our Antoinette dear. All right.
Yeah. Well, so thank you to everyone here who shared words. So one of the lovely things about this tradition of having all of the community members share about their experience is that we get many different angles on what is fundamentally the same experience and different ways of looking at the same experience. So Ayasoma mentioned that the word monk and monastic and monastery come from the word monos, which means one. And I also always found that a little bit strange until it was pointed out to me that could also mean that there's just one of us, but it's one of us that takes many bodies. That the experience of the monastery is just one thing. It's one experience, but it's experienced through different lenses, through different windows. So here there's 5 different windows on something that's fundamentally one experience, one thing, one state of being, which is the state of being of the monastery, the state of being of cultivating wisdom and compassion, of cultivating a gentle awareness, of cultivating a responsiveness of heart. So each one of us spoke in our own ways, in the way that was appropriate to us, that was reflective of our own particular window. But each one of us spoke about looking at the same thing, which is the cultivation of this wise, gentle, responsive heart. And the ways that we use this monastic environment as a vehicle for developing that. And the way that this monastery expresses itself through these different windows of being. So I hope this was of some benefit to all of you who listened and participated. Perhaps it might help you see monastic life as something that's not scary, something that's not weird, but rather it's what the rest of you are doing out there that's scary and weird, as Antoinette pointed out, which I have to say was delightful to hear that being said by somebody who's not a monastic. Because trust me, the rest of us, we think that every day. We're just like, wow, y'all lay people are crazy. Seriously, WTH, get it together, come to the monastery. So it's always delightful to hear that it's not only monastics who think that lay people are crazy. So yeah, maybe someday you'll come and spend some time at a monastery and contribute your own voice to this chorus. You'll contribute another window onto this timeless experience that we call monastery life. So if there's nothing else, then maybe we can go ahead and end it there. So we'll close with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
All right. See you all tomorrow morning for Sutta study with Bhante Sudazo, who is back and ready to share Dhamma. And tomorrow evening with a lot of us with monk chat. And bring all your questions there. All right. And as we like to say, have a great